Joining me now is News Corp columnist Louise Roberts and royal expert Pandora Forsyth. Ladies, welcome to the show. Now, Louise, talk of a sequel to Spare has re-emerged. I'm not sure I can cope with round two. What's being mooted?
Well, what a fascinating development this is, Spare 2.0, given that the book that Harry released, of course, only 4 months after his grandmother had died, and about 2 years after that very explosive interview Harry and Meghan did with Oprah. I think Oprah sort of gave the royal family some bullet wounds, but it was Spare that really drove a stake into the heart of the royal family. So any sort of suggestion that there's a new version coming out is absolutely mind-blowing. I will say it hasn't actually come from the Sussex camp itself or the publishers. It's come from Robert Hardman, who is a very well established and experienced royal biographer himself in the UK. He has written books on the Queen Elizabeth and also on King Charles. His theory is that because not a lot of detail was contained in Spare about the run-up to the wedding day itself and the drama behind that, and of course the aftershock of the wedding and the honeymoon, etc., he seems to think that this is being quarantined for a second book. Now, whether this is an updated biography, which is often what celebrities do, they just sort of tweak the current copy, or whether it's a new book, remains to be seen. But I don't think it's going to do anything for family relations in the meantime.
And I think that's the point, isn't it? Because if this is true, Pandora, then the willingness or likelihood of family reconciliation fades very quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're quite right, Caroline. It will fade dramatically. This is the time where Harry and Meghan really do need to be getting on the royal family's good side, as it were, especially in the time that they're facing at the moment, which is quite difficult with any family if you're facing a health diagnosis. And of course, they're facing two. And this also leads into the business of the monarchy as well. And Harry and Meghan haven't put the monarchy in the best of light, given Spare. So if they were to do a follow-up, given the fact that they're now, financially independent in a very, very good terms, because of the fact that Spare did so well initially, I don't see why they would. They'd almost be throwing themselves under the bus by doing that in terms of trust. But of course, many, many people will read it. And if they want the money, then that's obviously the way to do it. But of course, they've got that $100 million Netflix deal. They have the Spotify deal as well. So I'm not sure the financial argument actually stands there either. So you're quite right. It wouldn't help trust within the family at all if this was to go ahead.
But Louise, on that next Netflix deal, and we understand that Netflix is in the midst of a major content overhaul, it's been reported that the Sussex deal could be axed due to flagging interest, or at least cut back. What's the likelihood of that?
Well, I think their Netflix deal would be axed if they don't come up with the royal tidbits, the royal inside information. We know they're estranged from their source, their own family. So where will they get this information, and who will believe what they have to say? I mean, I know Netflix have sort of got this Polo documentary with Harry and Meghan's cooking show, but that's all padding. The real meat on the bones here is what they've got to say, their insider view and what's happening in the royal family. That's why Netflix signed them up to the deal in 2020 when they left the royal family. And of course, that deal was a 5-year deal, as Pandora says, for $100 million, and that expires next year. So unless there's suddenly some miracle and they're back in the fold in the royal family, I can't see the deal continuing, because no one wants to really watch a Polo show. They want to know what's going on in the royal family.
And Pandora, that gets us back to, I suppose, the purpose and branding issue surrounding the Sussexes. They keep struggling to land the dismount.
Yeah, quite right. They certainly do. The issue here is they need to keep the family on side now. They've given away so many secrets and so many behind the scenes palace juicy headlines to the media that ultimately they've sort of given too much away, because people want to know more, and if they don't say anything at all, then they won't grab the headlines. So they've given too much, but if they do want to keep family relations going, then they do really ought to think about the future here. And having another Netflix deal is great if they kept it to just Polo shows, but we'll see this year, is that really going to bring in the viewers? I don't think it will, personally. I know journalists will be looking at it, and perhaps if you're into polo yourself, which is a very, very niche niche market indeed, and very, very wealthy, which does cut off a lot of the Netflix market, then unfortunately, I'm not sure how far this Netflix deal is going to go into the future, and that's what leaves the big question mark over the Sussexes brand.
And the Sussexes have traditionally been very private insofar as their kids are concerned, and you'll hear absolutely no criticism from me on that front. But Louise, it's also been reported that they may change that in the future. What exactly is proposed there?
I agree, Cara. I think they've played the right card here in protecting Lilibet and Archie from the media so far. But I think the suggestion now is, of course, with their sort of quasi-royal tour of Nigeria and them saying what a fantastic success that was, that when Lilibet, who's now 2, and Archie, who's now 5, are a bit older, perhaps in about 3 or 4 years, they will wheel them out as part of the tour of the global sort of domination they hope to achieve. They're very intent on being these sort of billionaire entrepreneurs, and obviously having this sort of picture-perfect, beautiful, charming children and their sort of picture-perfect, beautiful, charming marriages, we're led to believe, is a great branding exercise. And we've talked, at length about how they've got to move on from throwing their family under the bus in order to make a dollar, but maybe that's what the next strategy is, to sort of monetize them as a family doing great works across the globe, quasi-royal.
And yeah, there is that, the not royals. And now, despite a bust-up with the Sussexes, the Beckhams still remain quite close to the royal family. Pandora, David met with the King this week and he's received a royal appointment. Can you run us through this?
Yeah, he did indeed. Now, this royal appointment for David Beckham is an extreme moment of pride. If you follow the Beckhams, they are quite literally British royalty in the UK, and they are up there in terms of, personalities within the UK and actually beyond now with Miami, with everything that the Beckhams are doing over there. Now, the King's Foundation, which was formed in 1990, is extremely special to the King. And if you follow David Beckham's work, you'll realise that he does a lot of work with young people and bringing them forward, and he'll tie that into football. But this is such a good appointment for him because it sort of brings a bit of his own background there, where he's able to speak to young people about their future careers and where they want to go, but also bringing in his wide knowledge about the countryside, which if you follow the Beckhams on Netflix, they did a big documentary, and you can see just how much he has passion for the countryside, which ties in very well with the King. So this appointment will be helping the youth find careers which also help the planet too, with textiles, and they've launched a new workshop outside as well, which he did visit yesterday, all in his country gear. And I have to say, they look like they get along very, very well. Their friendship is obviously not forced, and I think they have a mutual respect for each other. And of course, David and his whole family respect the monarchy widely and have never slammed them on a public platform. So it's a great fit, I think, for them both.
I think it is too, and I understand that they were swapping beekeeping tips, which I just think is the most
Yes.
British thing ever.
Brilliant.
Absolutely. Now, Louise, Princess Catherine continues with her recovery. There's been some formal news out of the palace this week, and she has been seen out and about in public. What's the update?
Well, isn't it great to hear she's been out and about in the public as well? So her parents live not too far from where she's resting in Norfolk, so I believe she's been seen out with mum and dad nearby, which is great. I haven't seen any photographs, but the mood seems to be that if she's well enough to go out in public and perhaps go to the shops, then that's a very good sign. The news out of the palace, however, is that she will not be attending the rehearsal for the Trooping of the Colour, which is a major, major royal event every year for the family. People line the streets of London and the streets of the Mall, of course, to see that very spectacular parade on horseback. But Kate won't be there for the rehearsal. However, there is a suggestion she may make it onto the balcony, which of course is the penultimate picture of the royal family up there watching the parade of the Trooping of the Colour. Only if she's well enough to actually be there, of course, so we don't know. You'll recall there was some confusion in March when the Army actually put out on their website that Kate would be attending the Trooping of the Colour and began to sell tickets and very hastily had to do a reverse there when the palace said, no, we can't say she will be well enough in March by the time June comes around. And in fact, it's only the protocol is only for the palace to announce whether a member of the royal family will be at an event. So look, let's hope it's not just a smokescreen. Let's hope Kate is on the mend and is well enough to attend that event in a couple of weeks' time. It would be great to see her there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pandora, I've only got about 30 seconds left, but on to King Charles. He continues to manage his recovery and workload, but also has to manage Harry. We understand a secret meeting was requested. What do we know about that?
Yeah, so this goes back to 2021, actually, when it was Prince Philip's funeral, and this was spoken about in Spare. Look, I think we can all be in agreement that a meeting should happen and it should be away from public headlines. But Harry lives in another country, and the last time he was here, he didn't see the King. So it does leave a big question mark over that. And their priority right now is getting better for the sake of the monarchy. So I suppose we will just have to see in due course whether it does hit the headlines.
Let's hope. Louise Roberts, Pandora Forsyth, thank you so much for joining us.